the type of system that I'm going to talk about today is our pumped monitoring with passive sampling. We use that at 4 sites that my group monitors, and it's also the type of system that Dan Janes uses on a couple sites and is used on another site as well. So what I'll show you is similar to the system that we have at the Northwest Research Farm, ADW, Northeast Research Farm, and Cobb's. So in all these cases, we're using it on a what I'd say is a individual plot scale. So from 1/7 to about 1 acre in size are the size of our plots. So this is what it looks like, somewhat similar that we have this corrugated sump. Then we have the drain that dumps into a sump, like you would find in most basements in the state of Iowa. And then there's a sump pump down in the bottom of that. We pump that water out there. We do have an inline meter, inline filter that will frequently or sometimes get clogged with a mouse. Um, and that flows out and through an inline flow meter for measuring quantity of flow. So for us, we're not able to get, say, an instantaneous flow rate. It would be an accumulated flow over some time period. Um, at our ADW and Northeast Research Farm sites that have been in place about 27 years, um, whenever we go out to take water samples, we record what that meter reading is. So we will frequently have meter readings for accumulated flow twice a week. On the Cobb's and the Northwest Research Farm, we have data logger connected to those inline flow meters. So we get a pulse essentially every time it pumps, and we get a record um, of of essentially the number of pulses that we have in a unit of time. So we can accumulate that over to, say, an hour basis, and that's how much water has been pumped from that system. Um, I guess some of the maintenance that we see with this type of system is, as I said, we will sometimes get rodents in there, either in the primarily in, I'd say, the inline flow meter or down in the sump. We will have pumps that at many of these sites, we might have about 10% of the pumps each year that burn out or are no longer usable. So there is a fair bit of um, maintenance that we see there. The range of conditions, as I said, we have sites from 1/7 to 1 acre, needs to have appropriate pump size for that. So that may be a limitation in many areas, is that um, or for large drainage, you may not have appropriate pump capacity or um, ability to pump that much. I know Tom Scherer has used a similar type approach um, in North Dakota using a pump type system. Let me see here, a couple other limitations I had. I think that's primarily it. Um, Oh, power. A big one is we have to have power with this system, and so that would be one limitation in many settings, is it cannot be a very remote setting, and the expense of running power can be high in some areas. With this pump system, maybe one of the advantages is we're able to collect a flow proportional water sample fairly easy. I would call it in a passive way, because we're not actively triggering a an auto sampler such to take that water sample. So what we have is there's an orifice in line, and the back pressure from the pumping forces a small portion of all that water into a sample container. So we're roughly in the 0.1 to 0.2% of all the water flow we capture in our sample containers. And then we will frequently go out and record the meter, collect a water sample once, and during higher flow conditions twice a week. But we are collecting a flow weighted or flow proportional water sample from that specific flow period. I've talked a little bit about some of the maintenance issues with the pumps and the flow meters. We also there's some maintenance with those. Once in a while, we can get some sand in there, so we do have to do some maintenance with that. Um, there are cases we've sometimes had a case where we've seen some surface ponding at one of our sites that has flooded our sumps. In general, we're able to still get water in if we had a submerged main, but we have had some surface water that has gotten in and flooded one of the sumps, like you see there on the left, and it ends up blowing out a breaker, and we need to change GFI breakers. Also, this doesn't react very well to frozen conditions, and so you see on the right there, one of our sumps that we had some flow, we got it in the spring, and then we had cold conditions and things froze up. And so that, uh, unfortunately, this type of system does not react very well to frozen conditions. So like about anything, like all the other measurements that we'll talk about or techniques we'll talk about, there are some challenges, but there are some advantages that overall, um, the maintenance is relatively low, and with this system, we're able to get a passively collect a flow proportional water sample.